This video is to help you to understand decimals to the thousandths place. Well, what is a thousandth? A thousandth is one of 1,000 equal parts. So when I have 1,000 equal parts, I'm just going to take one of those out and I have 1,000th of the whole. Starting at the right of the decimal point in a decimal number, the place values are tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So let's look at this number that I've written here. This is my ones place. And we know as we go this way, we have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. The numbers get bigger and bigger. On the right side of the decimal point, these numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They're smaller parts of the whole. Because remember, anything that's on this side of the decimal is less than 1. So in this number, 0, decimal, 4, 3, 2, in the ones place, I have a 0. My decimal always makes me say and. In this place, I have a 4. This is my tenths place. 3 is in the hundredths place. And 2 is in the thousandths place. So in this number, the 2 is the smallest part because it's only the thousandths. So I would read this number. I'm going to read the whole number to the right of the decimal. The place value of the last number is the last word that I'm going to say. So I'm going to read this as 432 thousandths. Well, exactly how much is a thousandth? Thousandths are even smaller parts than the hundredths. Now, the hundredths are small. If 100th were divided into 10 equal parts, then each part would represent 1,000th. So let's look at it this way with our fractions. What fraction of this square is orange? Well, the whole square is orange. So my fraction would be 1 over 1, 1 of the 1. My decimal is going to be 1 decimal 0. I'm going to read that as 1. So this fraction, we know that 1 over 1 equals 1. My decimal is 1, and I'm going to say 1. Well, now let's look at this symbol here. How much of this is orange? How much orange do I see here out of the total? Well, there are 10 of these rods that go across, and one of those is orange. So what fraction of my shape here is orange? 1 of the 10. So my fraction is 1/10. My decimal is 0 decimal 1. And I'm going to read it as 1/10. So you can see how my fraction and my decimal are read the same way and they show the same amount. Well, now if I look at this figure, what portion of this figure is orange? Well, only this one little part here, and I know that there are 100 of these little squares that make up the whole back over here. So what fraction of my tile is orange? Well, 1/100th. So I would write my fraction as 1 over 100. My decimal is written as 0 decimal 0.1 because I've got to get that 1 in the hundredths place, and I'm going to read both my fraction and my decimal as 1/100th with that TH on the end. Now, if I take this little square, and I had a magnifying glass and I could show you inside of there, and I divided that little square into 10 more equal parts, then one of those little parts in there would be 1/1000th. So it's 1/10 of that little square. If I could cut that little square to 10 pieces, one of those would be 1/1000th. So my fraction is 1/1000th. My decimal is written as 0.001, and I read both of these as 1,000th. You can also use a place value chart to help you understand the thousandths place. So I've set up my place value chart. Here are my ones. My decimals always have a place of their own. Here's my tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So in this number going across on my place value chart, I have 0 ones to put my decimal in. Then I have 4 tenths, so my 4 is in my tenths place, 6 hundredths, and 3 thousandths. Now to read this number, remember, I'm going to read the number to the right of the decimal, and the last word I say is going to be the place value of the last number. So I'm going to read this as 463 thousandths, because my 3 is in that thousandths place. All right, let's look at another one. Number 2, I have 0 ones. Bring down my decimal. I have 0 tenths, 1 hundredth, and 9 thousandths. Now, same thing. When I want to read this number, I don't have any whole numbers. I see my decimal. I'm going to read the number to the right of the decimal. Well, this number is 19. And the 9 is in the thousandths place. So when I'm naming this number, the last word I say is the place value of the last digit. So I'm going to read this as 19 thousandths, because my 9 is in the thousandths place. One more. I have 0 ones. Bring down my decimal. 0 tenths, 0 hundredths, and 2 thousandths. Same thing. I'm going to read it the same way, even with these zeros in here. So if I look at this to the right of my decimal, I have a 2. But what's important is what place is that 2 in, because that's going to be the last word I say when I read this number. So if I look at this, I have 2 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this number is 2 thousandths, because my 2 is in the thousandths place. Decimals can also be written in standard form, word form, and expanded form, just like any other number. So here are some examples that may be helpful. My standard form, 0.463. I'm writing the numbers using my decimals. My word form for this one, I'm going to read the numbers to the right of the decimal. 463, my last number's in the thousandths place, so it's 463 thousandths. And to write it in expanded form, I'm going to say my 4 tenths plus 6 hundredths plus 3 thousandths. Here's another one. Standard form, 0.019. I'm going to read the number to the right of the decimal. The last word I say is the place value of the last number. So I have 19 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm going to say 19 thousandths. In an expanded form, well, I don't have any tenths, so I don't have to write the zeros. So I can say it's 1 hundredth plus 9 thousandths. One more. 0.002. I'm going to look to the numbers to the right of the decimal. What do I have? I have 2. What place is it in? The thousandths. So I'm going to read this number as 2 thousandths. And there is no expanded form because I'm not adding anything to it. Let's look at one more. Let's put a whole number in there. Let's say 3. Okay, now I have my whole number. 3.462. When I have a whole number, what does the decimal make me say? And. It always makes me say and. So if I'm going to write this one in word form, I'm going to write 3 and, because that's my decimal, then I'm going to read the number to the right of the decimal, 462. And what place is that 2 in? Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm going to read this as 3 and 462 thousandths. In expanded form, I'm going to say 3, and I can put a decimal after it. It doesn't change the value, plus 4 tenths plus 6 hundredths plus 2 thousandths. So that's your decimals in standard, word, and expanded form. And don't forget that decimals and fractions are related. I can write my decimals as fractions very easily. If I read this number, 0.95, decimal 0.95, I have 95 thousandths. So here it is as a fraction, and they're both read 95 thousandths. 0.749 is 749 thousandths. 749 over 1,000 is my fraction, and both are read as 749 thousandths. What about 0.02? I'm going to read my 2. It's in the tenths hundredths place. So I'm going to say 2 hundredths is my fraction, and they're both read as 2 hundredths. What about this? 0.005. I'm going to read it as 5. 5 is in the thousandths place, so this is 5 thousandths. My fraction is 5 over 1,000, and they're both said as 5 thousandths. Last one, 0.6 is, well, 6, and it's in the tenths place, so I'm going to read it as 6 tenths. My fraction and my decimal are both read the same.